Hi, Christine. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Omar. I'm happy to be here.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I have been for 2 weeks when I found out this was scheduled, I've just been on pins and needles.
Oh, please. You make me blush.
All right. Big shout out to Steph for putting this together. I'm pretty sure if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be doing this. So I am just super grateful.
I'm very grateful for him too.
Okay, good. All right, so quick introduction, folks. Today we have Christine Hassler joining us on the show. I'm going to do a quick intro because I have specific questions for her later. So Christine Hassler is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, master coach, and podcast host who is committed to guiding people and organizations into their highest potential. She left her successful job as a Hollywood agent at 25 to pursue a life she could be passionate about. I get that. In 2005, she wrote her first book, 20-something, 20 Everything, and then 20-something Manifesto in 2008. Her latest best-selling book, Expectation Hangover, which is phenomenal. Free yourself from your past, change your present, and get what you really want, is the guidebook for how to treat disappointment on the emotional, mental, behavioral, and spiritual levels. Today, she supports individuals in answering the questions, who am I, what do I want, and how do I get it? Christine is a master coach who combines life coaching with the principles of spiritual psychology. Sound about right, Christine?
I think so. I think I wrote it. So sounds right to me.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure I nailed that.
Nailed it.
All right. So first of all, if you guys want to hear her backstory, she's got an incredible backstory. I've heard quite a few interviews with Christine. She's a master coach. On her podcast, Over It and On With It, she actually coaches people live. Mm-hmm. And you've been doing that for how many years?
Oh, God. It should be, I don't know if it's 6 this October. It's either 5 or 6 this October. Maybe it's 5 years.
Yeah, it's incredible. I have been completely binging on her. I can't even listen to the Coach's Corner because I just want to get to the next coaching session, right? They're so incredible. So listeners, do yourself a favor, check out her podcast. And I've also been reading Expectation Hangover, which is where some of my questions are coming from. And, I'm a life coach. And so as I'm listening to this, it just feeds me, right? It's incredible. So let's dive right into number one. What is your normal daily routine?
Well, it's a little different now, obviously, with it is different and it's not in a lot of ways. I mean, my husband and I just got off of almost 4 months of straight moving around and travel. We were in 23 different places in less than about 3.5 months because we moved out of California at the end of November and didn't move into Austin until mid-March and had a bunch of work and everything. So our schedule was just all over the place. There was no typical day. So we are really, really enjoying just being home and unpacking suitcases for good. So a typical day for us, we wake up, we always have oxytocin time together. So cuddle time together. And then we have our water with lemon. And then we go into a meditation either together or individually. It just sort of depends on how we're feeling. We went to Dr. Joe Dispenza's week-long advanced retreat last month and just loved it. So a lot of times we'll do one of his hour, and his meditations are anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. So we'll dive into one of those together, or we'll do our individual things. I like to have my matcha latte afterwards. Steph fasts. He's weird. He's like an all or nothing kind of guy. Our relationship's interesting. He's extremes. He's all or nothing. And I'm middle. I'm balanced. So it works. Most of the time it works out great until my balance is disagreeing with his extremist. But most of the time it works out great. So we do that. And usually when I'm having my matcha tea, I'm either just responding to maybe some emails or doing journaling of my own. And then it's just into the day. And a typical day looks like maybe a coaching client, doing my own podcast, lots of interviews. We just moved into a new house. So I've become an interior decorator, a cleaning lady, a cook, like a contractor, an electrician, a plumber, all this gardener, all at the same time. So my day's pretty busy with that too.
You're doing a great job, because when I interviewed Steph, the only thing behind you was the shelving.
Well, okay, so let's just talk about this for a moment. So I guess that would be your right. That thing was given to him by a ex-client who's now a friend, and it's beautiful. It's made of jade, but I find it very, very phallic, like extremely phallic.
Move over. Let's see.
When I do,
okay.
It's that green thing. It's this thing.
Oh, the green thing. I'm looking at the salt lamp.
Oh no, the salt lamp, well, that may be phallic too, but it's a little less obvious.
No, I was like, how is that phallic? It looks painful.
No, this is very phallic.
Got it.
Yes. So I think that he should put a picture of us there instead, but he's committed. So when I do interviews, I usually switch it, but I forgot today because I was running a little late.
Oh.
But yes, it was empty. He attempted to decorate it. I helped.
It looks fabulous. And, real quick, oxytocin. I'm always talking about oxytocin. And so, that's the first thing you do, right? I get my oxytocin. You guys do a little cuddling. Expand a little bit for our listeners, like the benefits of it and why should they do it and how people who are alone can get it.
Yeah. Well, first I'll tell you a funny story about it. So when our relationship was very quick to start. We went from 0 to 100 basically overnight. So we were introduced when I was living in Encinitas. He was living in Perth, Australia. We had a 2.5-month relationship over WhatsApp, which is why, side note, I think this is a great time for all single people to be dating virtually. I loved getting to know him virtually before I met him in the physical, because there was no pressure. There was no expectations. We really just got to know each other on a really deep level. And then we met in Greece and moved in together basically the day we met. And then he moved back to the States, and then we got engaged like a month after that. So it was pretty intense and pretty quick. So our stuff came up a lot quicker than a lot of other people that can live in the honeymoon period for a while and delay it. So one morning I was single almost a decade. So I was married in my 20s, got divorced, and was single about 8 years before I met him. So I was very used to my single life and my doing things my way and running my business and just doing my thing. And so I would shoot out of bed in the morning to go do my meditation, to do my routine. And one morning he said to me, you really should stay in bed. We need that cuddle time. We need that connection time in the morning. It's good to have this oxytocin. And I said, don't you tell me when I can get out of bed and when I can't. I can get out of bed whenever I want. If I feel like getting out of bed, I'm going to get out of bed. You're being really needy. That was, I don't know if those were the exact words, but that was the gist of it. Now, granted, this was on top of a lot of other things that were triggering me about the situation, just issues coming up between us. And so we got into this whole argument over cuddling, just this massive, it probably was a 30-minute argument over cuddling. That wasn't really what we were arguing about, because couples, when they argue, they're really not arguing about what they're truly arguing about. It's usually a deeper thing. What he was saying, translation, is I just moved here from Australia. I've left my entire friends and family. I don't know what's happening with my career. I'm relying on you in a lot of ways. I'm really scared, and I need to feel you need me in the morning, right? That was his translation. Mine was, I feel overwhelmed. All of a sudden, we're in this space. You've moved here. I feel all this responsibility and pressure to make sure you like it here, to make sure you're happy, to make sure that you have a business. I feel completely overwhelmed and I need some space. But the argument was about cuddling. Eventually, we got deeper into it and were able to really get to the deeper thing. And we cuddle every morning now. So that was such a tangent, Omar, to your question. But my interview should come with a warning that you'll ask me a question and then I'll go over here, but I'll always come back to the question. So oxytocin is a chemical we release when we're in physical intimacy, when we have that feel good, warm, fuzzy feeling. It's very common to release when you hold a baby, just when you're in a long hug, when you're cuddling with your partner. It's not so much a sexual, I'm sure it is a sexual hormone, but it's not about a turn on hormone. It's more about that warm feeling of just love, just connection and love and feeling safe and not feeling alone and all of those kinds of things. And it's so important to do this, especially now when so many of us are physically distancing, because we're not getting a lot of outside physical contact. Oftentimes our partner or a kid or our pet is the only source we can get. So if you are living alone, like you don't have a partner or a pet or a child or anyone that you can cuddle with, what I used to do is, because the mind doesn't know the difference between a well-imagined thought and actual reality. So what I did when I was single is I had a body pillow, just one of those long pillows, and I would cuddle up with it and just visualize it being my man, whoever he was, wherever he was. And I would just hold it and feel it and squeeze it tight. So I was even, kind of feeling my own arms around me and just taking that breath and just feeling that love and feeling that connection and imagining it. And I bet if someone hooked up my brain to electrodes or took a blood test or saliva test or however you measure oxytocin, I don't know, I'm sure that they would have found I was releasing oxytocin by doing that, because I was so committed to the experience of it.
When you were visualizing your man, did he have a lot of tattoos?
No, definitely not.
Okay. All right.
But he does. And that's the other thing. It's like when I finally let go of my attachment to what I wanted him to look like, not just physically, but the checklist, and I focused more on how I wanted to feel when I was with him, that's when things really shifted for me. And Steph, in a lot of ways, he has qualities that wouldn't have been on my list, not because I don't like them, but just because I wouldn't even think of them. And he doesn't have some qualities that probably would have been on my list. But I really do think that when we focus on the external and the list, it's our ego, it's our unresolved wounds, it's our limiting beliefs that are creating that list. But when we focus on how we want to feel in the relationship, that's a much better driver of what truly is going to be aligned for us. So I would focus on feeling safe. I would focus on feeling seen. I would focus on feeling passionate, not just physically, but just excited about the person and intellectually stimulated as well. I would focus on feeling like I had a real partner and someone that would nerd out about personal development as much as I would. And I do that with everything, even with like health or abundance or building my career. I focus on how I want to feel much more than I do write lists or goals or any of those kind of things.
We jumped right. That was question number 7, right? Is how
I should come with a warning.
No. This is perfect. This is exactly how I envisioned it, right? We're just going off in tangent. So what allowed you to meet Steph?
Oh, I think it was several things. And now he and I teach a program called Be the Queen, where we teach how I did it. In a nutshell, the biggest thing was, it was about me becoming a really good partner to myself. And I don't just mean supporting myself financially, going to yoga class, self-care. I mean, really being a partner, make sure my emotional needs were really being met, making sure my physical and sexual needs were being met, not waiting on someone outside of me to do any of those things. Having a deep spiritual relationship so that I wasn't expecting my partner to be my God. Cleaning out my own clutter, both physically and also energetically, really looking at where am I holding on to old flames? Where am I holding on to old resentments? Where may there be some stuff with my parents that I need to clean up? For me, I was a little, and not because they made me, this was just part of my soul journey. I was a little, as the oldest, too involved in my parents' relationship. And so I remember at one point in my journey, I did a divorce ceremony with my parents. They weren't present for this said ceremony, but I did it, and I wrote up divorce papers, and I really proclaimed and did a ceremony around it that, like, I'm getting out of this triangulated thing, and your marriage is yours. And I think that unhooked a lot of things as well.
Oh, I got chills all over.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, I want to divorce my mom. So
yeah, it's really important, because we can end up in these surrogate spouse relationships with our parents, especially if we're, if we have the archetype of a helper, which you do.
Yes.
And our parents, again, it's not their fault. They don't mean any harm by it. No. But a lot of times parents too, especially, my parents were the baby boomer generation. They didn't air dirty laundry to a lot of other people. So your child becomes your confidant. And that's, not heavy. So healthy.
No, it's heavy, man.
Yeah. It's heavy and energetically. And this is the thing too, for people that are wanting to call in a relationship, you may mentally think that you're ready. But a lot of times we're really not, because we're still hooked into past people, to old patterns, to old programmings. And this is the thing. I was super clear that I didn't want another divorce. I talk about 5 different kinds of relationships: issue-based, journey mate, compatibility, fantasy, and side-by-side. And I was clear I wanted a side-by-side relationship, which is 2 people that know they're whole and complete, still have their stuff to deal with and work out, still human. But instead of looking at each other like, you do this for me, you complete me, you do, they're looking in the same direction. They're headed in the same direction in terms of values and vision. And so when I really made that commitment, I should have known, I got frustrated that it was taking so long, but not just anyone would have done, and so I was really, really conscious about the in-between time. And the other thing too is, and I see this with so many women, you may feel like you're really ready, but remember, you're calling in another human being and they're on their path. So I think I was ready for Steph about 3 years before I met him, but he wasn't ready for me. He was still, he was still sorting out some massive stuff. And it was in a meditation. I don't know if he told the story, but he was in a meditation, a deep meditation, because he's a really deep meditator. He's way better at it than me. And he had the insight. He was like, I'm ready. I'm ready for my wife. I'm ready for my person. I'm ready for my beloved. And a week later, we were introduced. Yeah.
Wow. More chills. What a great, incredible story. So I totally, you were 10 years? Were you 10 years single after the divorce?
Almost. We got separated in 2009. The divorce took a while. I met Steph in 2018.
Yeah, no, I had a similar thing. I wrote an email to the universe. I said, I put it universe@universe.com. I'd just gotten out of a relationship, right? And I knew I was ready. Like right after that relationship I got out of, it was so amicable that I said, she wanted kids. I didn't, right? And so I said, okay, universe, I'm ready for you to introduce me to the woman that you have waiting for me, period. End of story. 2 months later, I met my wife.
That's amazing.
So it works.
Yeah, it does.
Wow. So incredible. So more about the divorce papers. So you wrote up divorce papers, and then what did you do?
Well, so I really thought about my reasons why. Like, I had been through a divorce, so I knew what divorce papers look like. But there's a reason, there's a splitting of things. And so I wrote like the things that I'm going to keep with them,
Oof,
like all the amazing things and the things that I'm giving back to them. Because if you think about a divorce papers, there's things that you get, and then there's things that your spouse gets, right? And then there's things that you share. Okay. And so it was, here are all the things that I'm going to keep, in terms of my individual connection with each of you, being able to have an adult relationship with you, the love, all of that kind of thing. Here are the things I'm giving back to you, all the things that I wanted to stop from happening. And then here are the things we still get to share. And then, I wrote my reasons why. And my number one reason why is because I wanted my own marriage. It was time for me to have my own marriage and to focus on that.
So good. There's so many people that are going to be listening to this episode that have no idea why they can't get into a relationship, or why they can't get along with their current relationship. Right. And there is this toxic hold, right, that's preventing them from being themselves. Right. And it may be with your parents, it may be with a sibling, it may be with an ex. Like it could be with anybody that you're holding, onto. Like I was clear. I was able to get over my divorce pretty quickly. It took me a couple years to be totally free, but because I focused on getting over it, I really focused on healing it. This is what inspired the book Expectation Hangover. And it was amazing when I looked back at other relationships, parents, exes, even friends that hurt me, how I didn't really process those to the degree that I needed to. So for people listening, you may need a few divorces, not just one. Ooh, what'd you do with the paperwork?
I think I ripped it up eventually. I kept it for a while. I had it in my bedroom and I kept it just so I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it felt complete, I just ripped it up.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I did one of your exercises, the releasing exercises.
Yeah.
I wrote for 10 minutes and then I set it on fire.
Oh, it's cool, huh?
Yeah, I almost burned the backyard. The piece of paper just erupted, like, because I've burned before, but it felt like it just exploded on me.
It was ready to go.
It was ready to go. All right, so this is so good. This is so good. I love it. I want to tangent now, because I think this is beautiful as far as what people need. First of all, over and on. You just said it. I was over it. Is that one of the inspirations for the podcast name, Over and On with It?
Maybe. I mean, the podcast name, I was in a session with one of my business coaches and we were just brainstorming and it just came out. We help people get over it and on with it, because that's the thing. Like, I'm not just a life coach that focuses on goals in the future. In fact, I dig more way into the past and help people free themselves from that. So we were like, well, how do we have like both, but not make it sound super heavy. So yeah, that's what we do. We get over things so we can move on with things.
Okay, great. So I want to dive right into the Prozac. So they, I'm going to segue fast too.
Great.
Because it's super important. The Share podcast is a recovery podcast. It's always about getting over, okay? Yeah. Overcoming these addictions. Yeah. And you have a lot of recovery and addiction references in your book, right? So obviously you can connect and can relate to it. You were on it for 20 years. You were prescribed when you were 12 years old because of depression.
Wow. So they said.
So they say, right? So here's this diagnosis. Western medicine prescribes you Prozac, and then they tell you you can never come off of it.
Right. You have a chemical imbalance.
You have a chemical imbalance. Okay. So one day you're like, enough's enough. Right?
Sort of. It was years of trying to get off of it. Yeah.
Okay. First, tell us that great rock bottom moment, the one about the bathroom. I love that story.
Oh, well, gosh, there's been several, but the one that really was the game changer was, so I had been dumped by my fiance 6 months before a wedding. I had left my successful career as a Hollywood agent and was really going into an identity crisis because I had really defined myself by what I did and my accomplishments. I was estranged from my family at the time, not speaking to them. I was dealing with some other health diagnoses, and then I was in debt because I, had a great Hollywood lifestyle and was trying to keep up with it without that kind of income. And so I remember I was living in Brentwood, California, and I had this black and white tiled bathroom, big tiles. And I just remember just laying on the floor crying. Why I was in my bathroom, I don't know, but it was like even before I read Eat, Pray, Love, when she has her bathroom floor moment, it just seems like that's where we go when we're desperate and depressed. And I really was spinning down into a victim spiral. And I had the thought that, well, if I've created everything thus far, if the common denominator is me, maybe I can change. And something, even though it was sucked at that moment, like I found something in me that wanted to get over it, that wanted to get to the other side of it, that didn't want to numb it. And that's when, because I'd been flirting with personal development and a life coach for about 3 years before that. But that's when I really fully committed to the path of waking up.
And when did you make this decision? What was the motivating factor for you to say, I'm done with the Prozac. I want to come off with this, and I'm going to seek, I'm not getting the answers that I need from Western medicine. And it says here you went to some 80s style spiritual healer, like she was like trapped in the 80s or something.
With her fashion, yes.
Okay. All right.
And her decor.
I want to know all about, because I was watching Joe Rogan's interview.
Oh
with
God,
you, right?
that was my worst interview ever. I was so nervous. I love Joe. I love him. And we had a great conversation after we went to cryotherapy after the interview for like 2.5 hours. And I wish that one would have been recorded because I was so intimidated and so nervous. But anyway, yes.
No, but in there you talk about how, like I don't suggest anyone just stop taking their meds.
Right.
Okay. So, and then you said, I
Either.
met this.
Yeah.
So and it was a 2-year period of time that it took you to wean yourself, really your body, on the cellular level to purge that. So walk us through that 2 years and tell us about the spiritual healer.
Yeah. Well, so, Mona, I met when I was way before I quit my job. Yeah. Mona.
Oh, brilliant.
I know. She's amazing. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us, but, she was recommended to me by a friend. I mean, this was probably early 2000s because I was in a relationship with an addict at the time. And I was just really in total codependence, in total, like, I should have been going to Al-Anon. But she recommended Mona, and I went to go see her in her house, which was very unorthodox for me because I'm used to psychologists and psychiatrists where it's very formal. And she's like, no makeup, sweatpants, opens the door, puts me in her son's room with his race car bunk beds. And it was just very different than anything else I'd experienced. So I would go, and then she'd say some things that I didn't agree with. Like she said, well, if you really want to wake up, you can't drink. And I was never a big drinker, but I was dating an addict at the time. So I was drinking more than I normally would. And I was working in Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. So she'd say stuff to that like that. And I'm like, meh, not ready to give up my wine. And then she'd say, baby, you're not broken. You don't really need to be on antidepressants. And I'd be like, I have a chemical imbalance. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's not even licensed. She's a former actress. What does she know? I just judged the shit out of her. But finally one day, I can't remember when it was or the sequence of events, but I remember sitting with her and really getting that she wasn't looking at me like I was broken. I was so used to sitting across from doctors, therapists, and psychiatrists who really kind of had the assumption that something was wrong with me. Otherwise I wouldn't be there. And then looking at my history, on anti-med since 11, like this woman is, mentally ill. So I always, even if they were great therapists, it always felt like there was a problem and we were there to solve it together. And with Mona, I just felt loved. I just felt seen. I just felt accepted. And that's why I kept running from her so much, because it was almost too much. It was almost, since I just had such self-loathing and such self-hatred and such an inner critic, that belief in me and that love of me, I just didn't trust it. I was like, no, I don't trust you. And therefore, in my rational mind, she wouldn't have any credibility. So then I could pick her apart and say all the things she was saying were completely incorrect, because that was my defense. But for whatever reason, I kept going back. And then after that bathroom floor moment, and actually my fiance broke up with me in a couple session with her. So he was so scared to break up with me. He called her and said, I need to do it with you so that you can put Christine back together, because I know she's going to freak out. And so he did it at the beginning of a session. He left, and then I was there with her. So she got me through some.
Thank God you didn't marry that guy.
Oh my God.
Was he the addict too?
No, this was after the addict.
Okay.
Yeah, my 20s were full of delightful relationships. I was never single in my 20s, which is why my 30s it was good to be single. So the thing in terms of the antidepressants, to answer your question, there were a couple things that happened. Mona kept seeding it in terms of, and she didn't do it in a threatening way, but she would just state it factual. Like, if you want to go to where you want to go personally, spiritually, my book had come out in 2005. I started to coach people. She's like, in terms of your intuition opening up and going where you want to go and feeling all the feelings, you're not going to get there on antidepressants. And she's like, baby, and she always called me baby. She's like, I don't think you have a chemical imbalance other than the one you created.
Ooh. So
she just really was a stand. And I do think there are some people without tools that maybe have bipolar or some other kind of true mental illness where a life with medicine actually makes your life so much better and so much more fulfilling. So please know this is not an anti-meds conversation. This is just me sharing my experience. And I do believe that a lot of people are medicated who don't need to be. I mean, the person, when I wasn't seeing psychiatrists, it was my gynecologist prescribing my antidepressants. Wrong body part, like not your area of expertise. So there was just like sort of this like dish them out. And then on top of the antidepressants in my 20s, I also was given Xanax when I started dating the addict. It's like, oh, well, if you have anxiety, don't leave the relationship. Here, just take this pill. That'll just make it so much better. So anyway, I had a lot of, and the other thing is I had daily headaches in my third eye. I'd wake up every day with a headache since I was in 5th grade. So I was also taking 2 Excedrin every day, which is aspirin and caffeine.
Dude.
So my poor little body, right? So when she said that she didn't believe that I needed them and that I could get off of them, it planted a seed. And then I started studying more personal development. I went back to grad school in spiritual psychology. I got married. I just felt more grounded and more supported. And I felt like I had Mona, I had my spiritual psychology program, I had my husband, and I also had been doing so much in health and wellness. I knew that because I believe that I was put on them at 11 because I had a gluten intolerance that was messing up my brain chemistry. And I believe that I was a highly sensitive, empathic kid without tools. And I just took on everything, especially my parents' stuff, everything. I also had some suppressed trauma that I didn't know about till my mid-30s. And that's why I think I looked depressed, but I don't know that I actually had a chemical imbalance. I think it was more, I was just overly not stimulated, but overly sensitive without really understanding or tools to process it. So understanding that about myself was part of it too, like understanding the why and having so much compassion. And so it was a combination of Mona, my grad school, the support of my husband, no alcohol. I didn't have alcohol for at least 2 years, and I still don't have a lot of alcohol now. I enjoy a glass of wine every once in a while, but it's just such a depressant. No gluten, no dairy, any of those things, just super clean, exercising, meditating, and doing emotional release work every day for almost a year. I did it every day. I teach something called the temper tantrum technique, which was taught to me by Mona. I've just adapted it a little bit, which is basically taking yourself through an adult version of a temper tantrum, hitting a pillow, screaming, crying, writing, getting emotion out, because depression from my point of view is suppression. It's so hard for our cells, our body, our psyche to hold in emotion, especially emotions like anger and rage and shame and grief. And when we're holding that degree of heaviness, we just have to switch off. I do believe depression is like addiction. It's a coping mechanism. It's a survival strategy. And it's just you switch something off inside you because feeling is just too painful.
And so how long did it take you? So you started seeing Mona. There was a 6-month period, right? And how long did it take for you to wean off the Prozac?
Well, I started seeing Mona when I was 22. I wasn't off antidepressants till 30.
Okay.
So it took me, by then I don't know if it was Prozac. I've been on every antidepressant there is. I can't remember what I was on at the time, Effexor or something. It took me a good 1.5 years to stop taking the meds, and then another about 6 months to feel like I could do it, to not have that at least a few times a week. Oh God, I don't know if I can do this. Oh God, there it is again. Like that kind of feeling. But I have to say now it's been 10 years and
wow,
I have never, ever, 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 ever thought, let me just get back on antidepressants. Maybe I need them.
Love it. Okay. So tell us about that day where you woke up and you knew you were good.
I actually don't remember. I really don't remember if there was like a day that I woke up and I knew I was good. I think it was just a process of realizing that the time I spent feeling depressed or worried about being depressed, those moments were getting longer between them, to the point where eventually I noticed that I just wasn't worried about it anymore. Like I just wasn't worried. Now, it was another year or two, and then my marriage started falling apart because part of getting off antidepressants was all this, like I woke up like big time, and I started to feel, and I wanted to go deeper. And, I wasn't the woman that my ex-husband married at all. Oof. And so I sort of changed the rules and changed the value set. And he was not really interested in the things that I was interested in. And I made the classic mistake that a lot of new life coaches make, which is I was so excited about everything I was learning and how I was changing. And so I just tried to change everybody in my life. I just would get on my soapbox and really just judge the shit out of people under the pretense of I'm life coaching you. And that was really hard for him. I think he felt judged. I think he felt like not good enough. I think he felt, he'd see me going to these workshops in this grad school, and I think he felt excluded. And his coping mechanism, well, I can't speak for him, but my observation of his coping mechanism was just to kind of shut down and turn off. And that so it was really amazing to go through a divorce and not reach for antidepressants. And that's why I'm so passionate about the book Expectation Hangover and the things that I teach, because I know they work. Like, as somebody who was medicated for 20 years, going through a devastating divorce, the fact that I never once made an appointment with a psychiatrist or even entertained the idea, I know the tools work. I know they work. They're not easy. It's not sitting around and reciting affirmations. It's not just meditating every day. It's doing deep, deep, deep work and being willing to go to the places that, most people aren't willing to go to and heal. And my favorite definition of healing, and I learned this at my grad school, is healing is the application of love to the places inside that hurt. And you've got to be willing to go there and not be afraid of those places, because the more we fear them, the more they just act up.
They do. And they're always going to be there until you do the work. And they're going to be constantly, they're going to be surfacing, and they're going to giving you opportunities to work on it, work through it, heal it. And otherwise you're just on the hamster wheel. So, question about the marriage. Mm-hmm. This is huge, because this I come across all the time. Personal development. Exactly. When you get on the personal development hamster wheel, if your couple is not on the same hamster wheel, right, you do this. You immediately start growing apart. So I want you to speak to that, because you said I made a lot of mistakes, as, new to personal development. Mm-hmm. Going back in time, what would you do differently?
I would have just been, to quote Gandhi, I would have been the change I wanted to see. I would have stopped nitpicking and judging and preaching and just lived it, because I do believe the person with more consciousness or awareness in a relationship has more responsibility. So you can sit there and finger point and blame and want someone to be different. And that's the thing and this was a pattern. It was a self-protective pattern too. I would look for all the things he was doing wrong instead of all the things that he's doing right. And I even catch that in my marriage today, because I'm a Virgo. I'm very hard on myself, and sometimes that leaks out. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm noticing things that Steph is doing that bother me, I quickly shift and tell myself 5 things he does that I love and appreciate. And I just start looking for those things, because especially in a relationship, the person's going to bug you. Like, they're going to trigger you. They're going to irritate you. And the more you focus on that, the more it grows. So that would be one thing I would say is as you're getting into this world, instead of looking at all the ways they're still asleep or they're not conscious or whatever, look at the ways they do contribute. Look at the ways they do support you. Look at the ways, like, in their way, that they are growing. And, I mentioned before, there's 5 different kinds of relationships. My ex-husband, I believe, was a journey mate. And what a journey mate means is you have a soul contract to take a journey together. It's not particularly, like, our relationship was not particularly fiery. There were never loud arguments. There was not a lot of, there's some bickering, but it didn't have that passion, fiery element to it. Journey mates usually don't. there's just this soul agreement that you come together for a time, usually not a very long time, and you complete some major soul lessons together. There were things that happened with his mother and my father during the relationship, and we were the perfect person for each other during that time. He taught me incredibly valuable lessons. I taught him incredibly valuable lessons, but we were made to take a journey, not a lifetime together. And journey mate partnerships, they're hard to leave because nothing's really wrong. Like, it's not like, oh, we fight all the time. Oh, he cheated. I mean, I remember times when I would wish he would cheat on me because it would make the decision so much easier, because I really struggle with the decision. So yeah, that was another tangent. But back to your question in terms of the things not to do, just to summarize: don't preach, don't teach, be the change you want to see, collect evidence for all the things that they do right. And just because you're into growth and somebody isn't, doesn't mean you can't be together. The main reason I see people go like this is because the people on the growth path gets a little personal development ego and starts unconsciously shaming the other person and sees them as not enough. And that's when it goes like this. But if the person on the growth path can just be that change and really, really like create in the relationship what they desire, and at least try, the other person generally will come along. And then if they don't, if you're just getting resistance and you're sure your side of the street is clean, then it may be time to leave. But a lot of times couples go like this because there's a little bit of an ego on the person doing the growth, and this person, just out of spite, goes way, way the other direction.
That totally makes sense. So, I mean, it's incredible how good you are. Like, I've watched you coach people. It blows my mind. On the interview with Joe, you were a life coach. That you didn't like the term life coach. And by the end of the interview, you guys were going to come up with a new title for you. And you never did.
We never did. I should text him and be like, listen, I know it's been 3 years, but.
No, but I love the title Master Life Coach. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, now I just say Master Coach. That's just what I say.
Okay. So Master Coach. Mm-hmm. So did I call you that in the beginning? Now I can't remember if I said Master Coach or. Yep. Master Coach. So how did you shift from life coach to master coach? And what did that entail?
Well, I mean, I think that it was just doing it for as long as I've been doing it. I started coaching people in 2004 when I was like a baby and barely knew anything. And I've done well over my 10,000 hours of coaching. Coaching, people starting a coaching business today is so different from when I started. I mean, how I started is I saw person after person after person for $40 an hour in my living room. And I do like 20 people a week sometimes. And I just would go. And Mona would supervise me, and I was getting my credentials and all that kind of stuff. And it was probably within the last 5 years that I just started, one, my intuition really, really opened up. Two, I think that all the things I've been learning over the years really integrated in me. Like it's like walking the talk thing. Definitely still human, definitely make my mistakes. Definitely not putting myself up on any kind of pedestal. But it's like, if you practice an instrument long enough, you can play it in your sleep type of thing. Like, it just becomes part of who you are. And that's, to me, this work is just part of who I am, and it just lives inside of me. And so I believe that if you've done something, you've done your 10,000 hours and you've done it over and over and over, and it is your craft and it is your zone of genius, then you become masterful at it. Does that mean there's nothing left for me to learn? Absolutely not. I'm always learning. I always have my own coaches. I'm always growing. There are always mentors that I'm looking toward to learn from. But at this point in my life, I don't feel there's anyone I couldn't coach. Like, I really, really, really just love humans so much. And like, whatever someone's issue is, I really feel like I could serve them in some way.
No, absolutely. So now I know, like, I keep track of all my hours of all my coaching clients. So I am going to create a timeline for my master coach title.
I love it.
I love that title. And 10,000 hours, I'm on the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So, God, I just lost my train of thought of where I was going to go with this.
That's okay.
So let's talk about Expectation Hangover, the book.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's 2 tools in it. Oh, I remember what I was going to say, that folks, she is legit. I watched her do it live on her free breath work that she's currently doing with her husband, Steph. They do these free breath work, and then she just coaches people. Right. And I would get on the call and just watch, and somebody call in and boom, she would just drop fire.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and the podcast, those are unscripted, unproduced, unedited. So I know nothing about the people. We meet on Skype and I just record. I'm like, hi, how can I help you? And we just go.
yeah, no,
It's so fun. Well, I love it.
no, it's legit. So there's 2 things in there. There's a lot, right? But I want to talk about the 2 ones that you emphasize in there, which was the release writing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the temper tantrums. Can you expand on each one of those so that, you know, my listeners can like dive right into taking action after this episode?
So, release writing, it's taught in many different forms. It was initially taught to me by, you know, I heard it as stream of consciousness writing. Mm-hmm. Mona would call it mind dumping. At my grad school, they called it free form writing. I call it release writing because there's a difference between releasing and recycling emotions. Mm-hmm. You know, recycling emotions is we feel something, but we're still in judgment. We're still in analysis. We're still in wanting to make it better. We've got our inner psychologist or inner critic hat, and the emotion isn't really being released. It's just being recycled. You're feeling something, but it's going back in because there's judgment analysis. And release is you actually just let things out and let them go. There's no point other than just to feel it and let it go. And so you sit down, you set an intention, and you just start writing. And you don't write neat handwriting. This isn't journaling where you're going to go back and read it. So it's just, I'm angry because, I'm sad because, I don't know what to write. This is annoying. I'm so sick of this. And you're writing so fast, it's like chicken scratch because you're trying to keep up with your thoughts. You do it a minimum of 10 minutes or when you feel energy shift. So like you went in feeling really anxious, and when you're done, you just kind of feel like, you know, all right, I'm not so charged. And then you rip it up or burn it because the intention is you're letting it go. You're not holding on to it. You're letting it go. So that's release writing. And then the temper tantrum technique, and I actually have, so on my podcast, I give little exercises that people can download every week. So if people go to christinehassler.com/anger release, you can get the excerpt from Expectation Hangover where I teach you how to do temper tantrum. In my personal mastery course, which is open all year round, I actually show you. I get down on the floor and show you how to do it. But the essence of it is you set yourself up for a temper tantrum. So a pillow, something to hit with. I like to use pool noodles, just cut them in half and use a pool noodle. Doesn't hurt your back and it makes a great whack sound. And if you live in a place with other people or you live in an apartment complex or something like that, you can scream into a pillow so that people can't hear you. And you just start the movement, just start hitting, or you can punch a pillow and just start to get the energy up. And then again, use those sentences like I'm angry because, I'm frustrated because, I'm pissed off because, fuck you because, like whatever. And you just ride the wave. So in Expectation Hangover, I talk about how on the emotional level, you want to embody that of a surfer. So a surfer doesn't control the ocean. A surfer it sees a wave coming, it catches the wave, doesn't know how the wave's going to go exactly, but it either gets knocked off the wave or it rides it all the way to the calm beach. And so with emotions, you want to think of them like waves, and you just want to get on whatever wave is coming up. I've been in a temper tantrum technique and I'm yelling and then I break into tears and then I'm like crying, but then I get angry again. And then, you know, then I want to like cry a little more and then I get angry again. And then maybe I'm laughing, or then maybe I want to stop my feet and just make a rah sound or whatever it may be. You just ride the wave all the way until you get to, like little kids, when they get to the end of a temper tantrum technique, they start kind of whimpering like,
yeah.
and calming themselves down. And then they self-soothe. They rock, or they get a stuffed animal, or they're ready to come to mommy, or whatever it is. So you want to ride it all the way through until you're self-soothing. And then I like to go into some kind of forgiveness. So forgiving myself for any judgments or misunderstandings I bought into, forgiving myself for judgments I may have placed on other people, and just kind of fill myself back up with forgiveness and gratitude and self-soothing. Because you don't want to just do an emotional release and then be like, okay, done. You want to make sure that if you've emptied, you fill yourself back up with higher vibrational feelings like forgiveness, gratitude, nurturing, compassion, those kind of things.
Okay, that's wow. I mean, it sounds wonderful. Okay, now the temper tantrum part, easy peasy. Okay, like I'm sure our listeners are like, I can do that,
Yeah.
right? But then at the end of it, after you've like gotten yourself and you're nurturing, you're self-soothing, then there's this element of forgiveness and wow, right? Self-compassion and forgiveness. I mean, that's like, I'm sure you run into that a lot.
Yeah.
People just are so like, they probably were listening. Yeah, I got it. And then got to that part and it's like, oh, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Any tips for that when you get to that point on how to access that?
Well, there's guided meditations from me that if in the book that you can download online, and that helps a lot. Just hearing my voice and hearing me walk you through it does help a lot. Compassion is my superpower, so I love helping people get to that place. So the best thing, a really good tool. I don't have a picture of me here, but this is a picture of Steph when he was a little boy.
Aww.
So I usually have a picture of me. I have one by my bed, but looking at a picture of yourself when you're a child really helps get there. So just have one next to you when you're doing the technique. Look at it. Know that's the person you're fighting for. You're really fighting for this little boy or little girl who got hurt, who didn't have a voice, who got shamed, who got judged. And like, if you just connect with that part of you, you will feel compassion. You absolutely will.
Oh man, that is fantastic. All right. So I'm watching the time feverishly here. So here's what you've got a ton of stuff going on right now. All right. Tell us what's the best way for our listeners to find you, all the stuff you're currently offering, the free stuff, the masterclass, everything.
Well, the best thing to do is go subscribe to Over and On with It, because I'm always announcing on the show what's going on. So that's the best place to go. Yeah, it's a podcast. ChristineHassler.com. You can go and take my free coaching assessment. So that's a cool place to go. For those of you that are more texters than on an email, I have a free gift that's really cool. It's an ebook, but it's also a 6 steps to make intuitive decisions. Because people ask me a lot, like, you're so intuitive. How do I become more intuitive? And so I teach it in a logical way, which sounds like an oxymoron, but you kind of have to use a logical mind to get to intuition. So it's 6 steps to learn how to make intuitive decisions. And you can just text the number 444999 and my name. So just Christine, CHRISTINE in the subject, and you get that. Okay. And text it where? On your phone? Yeah, just text, just grab your phone, put the number 444999 in the subject, write Christine, and you'll get a link. Fire. When's the next retreat to Costa Rica? I don't do retreats to Costa Rica anymore. I used to do Costa Rica. I used to do Bali. I used to do Tulum. But the next retreat we're doing is actually in Austin. It's end of September, God willing, September 24th to 27th. Steph and I are teaching a 5-day retreat together called Love Amplified, which is going to be epic. So we combine all his gifts and all my gifts and create a pretty cool experience for people. And that's for men and women? Yeah, men and women and couples and whoever. Okay, because, when you were on Joe Rogan, you only had women retreats. That has changed because now I have a hunky male partner to help me. He does make a big difference. Yeah, men appreciate him. Men appreciate, I coach men too. I've always worked with men. I love working with men and women. I love humans. But there's a trust that, man to man, it's like woman to woman. You need both. You need those healthy female role models. You need those healthy male role models. And, a lot of people have been telling us lately, I don't think we're old enough for this, but they're like, you're the mom and dad I never had that I always wanted. I'm like, oh, all right, well, okay, we'll go with that. Well, the thing about Steph is that he's one of those guys that like every guy wants to be him. So, and he's got this incredibly gregarious personality, just welcoming, and he's just like, he sucks you right in. So, and actually both of you do.
Like when I watch you coach people, it's the same thing. It's like the very familiar energy that kind of happens. And I think that's what it's what I have. I think you have to just be born with it.
Yeah.
I think you just have to be born with it. Get real quickly, just coronavirus. Okay. It's a cosmic wake up call. Give me just your feedback on what your.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive expectation hangover. I wish I could give the book to every single human being on the planet and have people actually do it. Because from my point of view, this is the universe going, look, the ways you are living are not sustainable. And I don't just mean driving our cars and using our plastic water bottles. I mean the ways we're living inside ourselves, the judgments, the hate, the anger. I mean, people hurt people, bottom line. And we live in a very, the beautiful side effect of doing personal development work and spiritual work is you realize we're all one. You realize we're no different. Like you get into more of a healthy ego. And when we're in that realization, we make different decisions and we take different actions. So I don't think this is the time to write your next book or get your, do your podcast you've always dreamed of or clean your closet. I think this is the time to go deep into your shadow, to go deep into what is the stuff that's unsustainable for me and work it, like just go straight in. Because if everybody does that, if a lot of people do that, I don't think everybody will, then we're going to shift things easier. My concern, Omar, is that because everything's a metaphor, right? And human beings mirror nature. And emotionally, when I see this with clients, I see it with myself. When I just if something happens, something big, and I just sort of deal with it, but not really, I just get through it, which is what I think a lot of people are doing. They're trying to just get through it. Then it comes back around again, even worse. And so my concern, not to promote any fear, is that if we just quote unquote get through this and don't dig deep enough to make massive changes, then come to the end of the year, guess what? We're going to be dealing with another round. I'm holding that doesn't happen. I'm holding that consciousness really, really, really starts to shift. But everybody's like, this is such a gift. It's such a blessing. And my friend Brandy Gilmore thought this was so brilliant. She's like, it's not quite the gift yet. It's the opportunity. It's the opportunity. Will we make it a gift? We'll see. So I know that's not like Susie Sunshine, but that's just my take on it.
No. First of all, I agree 100%. My takeaway is if the best case scenario for us in the human realm is the worst case scenario for the planet, because the quicker we get through this, the quicker we forget about it and go right back to living our lives exactly the way we were.
Yep.
Okay. And more importantly, that if more people say it's a gift, right? Like even that is a shift from what it was before. It's like, oh my God, what's happening? It's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like that's a shift in consciousness and perspective already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, all right. 2 questions.
Yeah.
Then we're done. What is the best advice or suggestion you have ever received?
Oh, after my divorce, someone said to me, milk this for all it's worth. Meaning don't just get through it, go into it. Use everything this is triggering. It's not just about your divorce. It's about so much more than that.
Love it.
Yeah.
What is one final piece of wisdom that what's one parting piece of wisdom that you would like to share with our listeners?
Adulthood, for the most part, is processing your childhood in so many ways. It's not forever, but a big chunk of adulting is healing your childhood. So, and how you do that, the simplest way to do that is you become the parent to yourself you always wish you had. That is the simplest way to do that. You really get comfortable with your inner child, talking to it, asking, what do I need? Understanding your triggers, taking 100% responsibility for your actions with compassion, without self-blame. And no, 1000% that any human being has the potential to heal and transform. You're not your circumstances. You're definitely not your past.
I love it. Folks, expectation hangover, get it, subscribe to Over It and On With It, her podcast. I only recommend one podcast outside of mine, of course, which is the quote of the day.
Oh, I love Sean.
Right. Love Sean. I interviewed him about a year ago. Okay. I'm going to start recommending over and on with it because I think it's just brilliant. It's brilliant. Christine, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and asking such great questions.
You are amazing. Loved having you. All right, folks, we've now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida.
And that's